Welcome to episode 23 of the Mile 62 podcast. I'm your host, Richard Elkins, coming to you from a rainy Austin evening. Hurricane Hannah has hit South Texas coast, I guess around Corpus, and we're starting to see some outer bands of rain hitting. So I'm glad I went out and did a fast ruck this morning. I was rucking with 20 pound in my speed go ruck. But this afternoon it started raining pretty hard, and I had to cancel my bike. I was going to do a road bike this afternoon, but it looks like the next few days we're going to get a lot of rain. So I might get some time off for the feet and spend time with my weight training, which I've been trying to kick it up a notch. And also I'm trying to thin out a little bit. I'm really reduce my carbs. Too much time at home, working from home, and anyways, I've gotten a little bit bad on my eating habits, so I need to thin down a little bit. Exciting few days. I was listening to Rob Goen of trail racing over Texas. Boy, tongue twister tonight. He had a really nice live broadcast on Facebook talking about the fall schedule, some changes that he wants to make, and some ideas on what he's going to do. You know, he's been hit hard by the race cancellations and getting permits and all that, but he thinks that racing will be back to normal by October. But unfortunately, several of my races, I had one in April canceled, Habanero 100 canceled in August, and he said El Taco Loco, which I believe is in October, I'm registered in San Antonio, is going to be canceled too, and I have Brazos Bend 100 miler in December, and that one's still 50-50 chance, I think. But the races that are in the big cities are real hard to get permits right now, and he said that the cities are not even accepting applications. So, and as you know, in Texas, the COVID-19 situation has gotten bad over the last month and a half. So hopefully it gets better and we can get back to racing. But one exciting thing is he said that he's going to replace the Habanero 100 with a new race called the Jalapeno 100. And tentatively, he is going to have that race on November 7th, which is what he mentioned. And it will be at 7 IL Ranch, the same location that we have the Habanero 100. And for everyone that's familiar with that venue, it's basically a 10-kilometer loop that you do multiple times. It's got some sand sections. It's got some hills. But it's a nice ranch where they do it. It's probably an hour and a half from Houston. It's hour and a half from Austin, so kind of in between. And the folks out there do a real good job. Trail Racing Over Texas has a lot of events out there. But he's going to call it the Jalapeno 100, and he's tentatively marked it for November 7th. So that's exciting news, because that course, of course, it's not a replacement for Habanero. It's just giving everyone a 100-mile race on the same venue a little bit later in the year, because you really can't replace Habanero, because Habanero starts at 12 noon in the middle of August. The heat is a big factor of the race, and you know, if you don't have it on the same day or around this in August, it's not the same race. So yeah, I'm excited to hear more about it. He's going to finalize it in the next week or two, but he told everybody about it, and he wanted to spread the word. So I'm spreading the word now on my podcast. We got the Jalapeno 100 coming up in early November 7th. I actually hope that he does November 7th, because if he slides it any later in November, it causes me problems, because I have the Brazos Bend 100-miler and in early December. So that's 4 weeks apart, 200 milers. So that's really a little bit tight, but doable. But if the Jalapeno 100 slides any, that can cause me some problems, because I need some time to recover from the Jalapeno 100. Good thing is early November, it's going to be kind of cool on that course, and that'll be nice. I've never run that. I've run that course twice. I run that course twice, but it's always been above 100 degrees. And in November, it can be hot, but it also can be cool. I mean, it could be down in the 80s or something, which would be nice. So that's an update about racing. The other thing we got going on the last few days is Garmin outage. Whoa, what the heck is going on? I was a little bit disappointed in Garmin. I've been a good customer for them for many years, and they first said it was server maintenance, and then the New York Times or one of the media outlets, it wasn't New York Times, it was one of the media outlets leaked that had a story saying that it was ransomware, and they got the scoop from some Garmin employees. I think the best way of handling it for Garmin would have been to come out and be honest about it and say, hey, we got hit by some malware and we don't know when we're going to be up. But the first few days it said server maintenance, and now it just says outage. So they haven't sent any emails to us or anything. They've just updated their page. But it's hit the running industry tough. It's been tough. Even Strava has a link on their main page saying that if you want to post your run to Strava, you can using your computer, and it explains how to do it. It's not actually real easy to do it that way, but it is possible. But probably 40-50% of the runners out there, they use Garmin, and they transfer their runs to Strava via Garmin. And Strava was saying even that Strava Beacon and other safety features of Strava is not working right now because Garmin's not working right now. So kind of messed up everybody. I'm sure Sunto and Koros are laughing because one of the big selling points for Garmin is against Sunto for many years is their back-end software on their computer is much better than Sunto. Sunto does have a computer software and a back-end, but it doesn't work very well, and they've always got a lot of complaints. I know they've been trying to improve that. And Koros, actually I listened to an interview with the CEO of Koros on a podcast, and they've only been going a few years, and their apps are a little bit more simple. It's a good watch, but they only have an app on the phone. They do not have back end on the computer. So Garmin's kind of been the leader, and now they've just been hit hard. I think it's been 3 days down now, and no light at the end of the tunnel. Nobody really knows when they're going to be up again, and there's no updates from Garmin. They just say we're out, tough shit. So I don't think they're handling it very well. They should be giving their customers an update, an email. They have our information because they send us emails all the time trying to get us to try new features and sell things to us. So they know how to get a hold of their customers, but they aren't talking. So I give on a scale of 1 to 10, I give Garmin maybe a 2 on communication. They're not doing a very good job communicating with their customers. So that's it about Garmin. I sure hope it's up soon. I've got a bunch of runs stored on my watch. I know it'll keep storing them for a long time, but because I've got the Phoenix 6. But I just hope that in the next few days they get things going again. My training this week has been a little bit lighter. I mean, I had 2 weeks of close to 60 miles, and then this week I think I have about 25 miles on my feet and probably 25 miles on my bike. My right foot's been a little bit banged up. I did get some new shoes, but I've only used them once. I got the new Olympus 4, like I said on the podcast. I've been using my Ultra Temps, my old version, and also my Hoka Mafate EVOs. Those are the ones that Jim Walmsley used to win Western States the first time. I've been using those shoes too, but my right foot's been a little bit banged up. And I think part of that is maybe I'm rucking too much. I'm gonna slow down on my rucking because I was doing 20 pounds, and I actually just bought a 30-pound plate. It came in yesterday, but I haven't used it yet. But I'm gonna slow down my rucking a little bit and get my thin down a little bit, lose a few pounds, and focus more on biking this next week. I'm excited about that too. I'm big into cross training, whatever it works, and I might do some swimming too. Thing is, there's a lot of people going to my community pool. It's a nice pool, but during the day it's just too many people. It's too risky. But early in the morning, there's just a few people there. It's okay to go swimming. I really wish this virus thing would go away. It's really screwing up everything. So in the next segment of this podcast, I'm going to talk about the Tarahumara Indians, or the runners in Mexico. So wait till after the break. Hey, let's talk about Mexico running. I've always been fascinated with running in Mexico, and I've had a few races on my radar in the past, but never pulled the trigger. There's along the border, and I've worked in Juarez and factories in Juarez because I've been procurement and worked in EMS companies, and I spent some time in Juarez and along the border, and it's really, really violent. But in central Mexico and up in the northwest, it's actually very peaceful, very pretty Mexico. I'm talking about Coahuila, province, and they have a bunch of great ultra races in Mexico, and I've heard some of the pros on podcasts talk about them, and a lot of them were talked about in the famous book Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. If you haven't read that book, I highly suggest it. And there's also a write-up on the Tarahumara runners in a book called Going Long by Runner's World. It's the best stories from Runner's World, and it's also written by Christopher McDougall. But I find it very interesting. Just a little bit of history. The Tarahumara, they actually got their name. They're an indigenous people in the mountains of northwestern Mexico. They say there's about 50 to 60,000 of them today, and they are very nomadic, and they do farming and ranching, and live in houses, but also live in caves and stuff. And I don't know if that's true anymore, but that's what it said in the book. And of course, the books were written in the 90s. I don't know what it's like today. I doubt they live in caves today, but I've seen them. I've seen some Tarahumara. They commonly called Tarahumara, but the formal name is Tarahumara, and that name was coined by 17th century explorers. But their real name is the Raramuri. Raramuri is also the name of their language, and Raramuri means lightning foot people. I think that's very interesting. But there's a bunch of races, like I said, in Mexico, and one of them is the Ultra Caballo Blanco Copper Canyon, and it's a 50-mile race. It's very famous. It's also talked about in the Born to Run book, and that's a race that I want to do. But one thing interesting about the Tarahumara, they, in the early 1990s, I think in the book it says 1993, they showed up at the Leadville Trail 100 Ultra Marathon in Leadville, Colorado. And we all know that's a one hell of a 100-mile run, because you go up through the mountains, and Leadville's high elevation. You go up to Hope Pass, and then down, and then back down Hope Pass, and you do 100 miles. That's a very hard 100-miler, and good athletes, it often takes them a couple tries before they finish that 100. Well, they showed up on the starting line in the 1993, and here are these are shorter runners and togas with shoes, sandals made of car tires, and they were offered some Rockports. I guess Rockport was sponsoring the event. Boy, that dates me there. I mean, who would run an ultra in Rockports? I mean, some of us used them for office shoes and walking shoes back in the 80s and 90s, but I think it's very interesting that people were running ultras in Rockports. Well, some of the runners took the Rockports, but what's interesting is about halfway into the race at aid stations, they were all swapping them back to their tire outsoled sandals that are handmade. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, of course, you see people running in these Teva sandals and Zero sandals. I've seen them in races, and I'm always wondering, how do you do that and not get all chafed up in your feet? And I've actually seen some people get chafed up and swap out to regular shoes. But with my ultras, I'm wearing gaiters. I'm trying to keep small rocks and sand out of my shoes, and here are people running in sandals. Well, these Tarahumara runners, they're running 50 miles in a day, going to the next city, and they're always wearing these sandals, homemade sandals made out of car tires. And boy, you must really have to kind of, in the machining business, we say tool harden means the steel gets hard when you work it. I think the skin must do the same thing. I mean, I think my feet are or harden more, and I don't get blisters as much because I've been running for so long. But I think the Tarahumara must have the same thing. I don't know how they can run those miles in handmade sandals made of car tires. I just find that just mind-boggling. But anyways, Ultra Caballo Blanco Copper Canyon was, the name comes from Caballo Blanco, and that means white horse in Spanish. And there was a foreign guy that went down to Mexico and studied the Tarahumara, and they called him Caballo Blanco. And they talk about him in the Born to Run book. And a lot of the information that we got about the Tarahumara and the secrets came from him. I'll read you one short paragraph from the book. It says, they chain-smoked fierce black tobacco, ate ton of carbs and barely any meat, and chugged so much cactus moonshine that they were either drunk or hungover an estimated 1/3 of the year. And drunkenness is a matter of pride, not of shame, Dick and Mary Lutz wrote in their book, The Running Indians. And yet, they insist there is no doubt they are the best runners in the world. And other places in the book, they talk about panoli. I think I say it, panoli. I think that's hot sauce and beans. And basically, when they go running, they take a sack of beans, cooked beans, with some hot sauce and maybe some moonshine, cactus moonshine, or I would think maybe some tequila, and they go run 50 miles. Sounds like a lot of fun, actually. I remember at Javelina 100, that's a really fun event. If you've never run Javelina 100, I've done it twice, and I would like to do it every year if it wasn't so far. I have to fly out to Phoenix to do it, but it's such a well put on event, and they've got aid stations with disco balls, and they have some hard liquor out there too. And you see some people having a lot of fun out there. But that kind of gives me that thought when I read this. I was like, man, they just lived the Javelina 100 life every day of the year. But I find them very interesting, and even today I've been to some races in Texas. I think it's mostly like 5Ks and 10Ks where I've seen some Tarahumara runners and other Mexican athletes come up for those races, and boy, they just win them every time. And when they ran Leadville, keep in mind, this was 1993. There were some of them run 17, 18 hours in Leadville. This is back before all this technology that we have today. Some of the famous ultra runners, they were carrying a liter of Coke and jelly beans. That was their nutrition. It was working fine for them. I think it's always funny to listen to Carl Meltzer, which, he had the speed goat himself. He always talks about the ultras back in the olden days. They were very simple. They drank Coke, maybe some jelly beans. We read about Amelia Boone. She likes to eat Pop-Tarts for nutrition, and she does really well. And we've got so many fancy gadgets and hydration bladders and all this stuff. And these people were running 17, 18 hours back then. If we talk about running, you talk about the era of Bill Rogers back in the 80s. Our marathon times in road running is actually not very good compared to the 80s. These guys were really hardcore, Bill Rogers and those guys. They were running times, they didn't have these Ultra Flies and Nike special shoes and stuff. They're running almost the same times, in some cases better than we are pro runners are running now. So very interesting how things were going on in the 90s and in ultra running, and with these Tarahumara Indians coming up to some of these big events. But highly recommend reading Going Long, The Best Stories from Runner's World. I actually picked that book up in Half Price Books. So, and I've been to some thrift shops sometimes. Sometimes I go there, and the nice thing about endurance sports and adventure racing and all this, if you go into these thrift shops, often they have the really good books that are real expensive on the shelf, and nobody buys them because we're kind of a weird bunch, a small percentage of the population. So if you go into thrift stores, I bought a couple Lance Armstrong biking books and a couple of really good running books. I also bought the Running Bible, which is a real thick book, all in a thrift store, and I bought them for like $1 or $2 a piece. Nobody will buy them. not many ultra runners going into Goodwill, but I go into the thrift store sometimes just to buy books. I don't buy anything else there. But just a kind of advice if you want to get some books cheap. But highly recommend to read the book Born to Run and Going Long, the best stories from Runner's World. And one thing I forgot to mention about when I was talking about Garmin earlier, boy, their stock is down like $3 a share. Boy, they've taken a hitting. My brother was doing some calculations, and he said they lost like $600 million market cap or something like that. Boy, this has really messed them up. But anyways, I wish everyone has a good weekend and a good next week. I'm trying to do at least a couple of podcasts a week. Some will be short, some will be long, and I'll start doing more interviews. So stay tuned. If you have any comments on the podcast or like to be on the podcast or just any feedback in general, you can send me an email at runnerrwe@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm at runnerrwe, so it's easy to find me on all three of those. And on Strava, I'm Richard at runnerrwe. And on Strava, I also have the Mile 62 running club. You can find me that way too. So I'm on a lot of social medias, and I love to talk with people and talk about running. And I don't do this for a business. I just like to have fun and talk to my friends about running. So if you have any ideas, send them to me. Love to talk about them on the podcast. And shout out to my sponsors, Squirrels Nut Butter, Ultra Aspire for hydration vest, and lighting. Been using their lighting longer than I was a sponsor for them. Got some new exoskin products. I'm real happy about those. I got 3 new pairs, and I'll be doing a technical review on my new types of exoskin shorts next week. So stay tuned. Have a good run. Wish everybody the best.